Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco, and it's so great to be here, broadcasting on 6abc.com. If you're a fan of radio, we also broadcast on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Before I welcome my guests today, I want to always give a big thank you to our sponsors, our corporate partners who bring us the support that allows us to bring you these amazing women and their stories. So I want to say thank you to Comcast, NBC Universal, Curio Digital Therapeutics, Dr. Jen Welter, who does a sports watch for us, Sherry Morrison, who's leading our brand new lifestyle watch. You'll hear from her later in the show today, and Penn Community Bank that does a finance watch. Also, for all information on the show, feel free to go to womentowatch.net. That's women, the number 2, watch.net, N-E-T, and you can see our lineup and all things related to the show. And don't forget to sign up for the podcast and our newsletter. So now I'm very excited and honored to welcome to the show Robyn Graham. Robyn is a personal brand strategist, and she's also the author of You, Me, and Anxiety. Robyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Susan. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's great to have you. And I so much appreciate your candid talk around the topic of anxiety, in addition to the work you're doing to help and support women entrepreneurs. And I wanted to start with a little bit about your background and have you talk about the community you grew up in.
Oh, wow. So I grew up in a little town called Nashville, Illinois, a town of 3,000 people, primarily farming community. My father was a journeyman lineman for Illinois Power, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom and an artist, and later went to college and became a librarian. We grew up in going to church every Sunday. We grew up going to a parochial school, and the high school, the largest class, I think, was 125 students. So we were very, very small community, very tight knit. Everybody knew everybody's business. And yeah, that was it. And I couldn't wait to leave and go to college and create a life of my own.
Yeah. You know, I have a quote you shared with me. You said, I grew up in a family with a lot of dysfunction, and I suffered with severe anxiety. So when I hear that, I think a lot of children, for multiple reasons, have that kind of an experience. And I wonder if you can describe where that came from for you and how you managed to kind of continue to move forward with your dreams in spite of that.
So I think there are several things to consider here. One is that because of that, I was driven to get away and create something of my own. It's not that my family ever suppressed me. I was always encouraged to dream and to do and be active and go for whatever I wanted. But my parents both came from dysfunctional families. And when you have two people who come from dysfunctional families, and my mother had been abused as a young woman, young girl, and when you come from those environments, it's very hard to create something of your own that doesn't reside in a place of dysfunction. And my parents were totally in love with each other. But because of their past histories, my mother had a lot of challenges with trust. She didn't have self-confidence. She was constantly trying to prove herself, was always worried about what other people were going to think about her, our family, my father. My father came from, again, a loving family. However, there was a lot of trauma and a lot of dysfunction, and he had anxiety himself. And as a result, he had a temper. So when you bring these two personalities together, there was a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting. And that is not a healthy environment for a little girl who is already prone to anxiety and is shy to experience. Now, my sisters and I are all strong, successful women, but I think there's a couple of things there. When we were always encouraged, and we were always encouraged to work very, very hard. And all of those things combined kind of pushed us in the direction to where we were going to succeed and we were going to do something with ourselves and for ourselves, no matter what circumstances defined us when we were young.
Robyn, would you say when you were young that sometimes in a family you can feel and sense that things aren't right, but if it's not discussed and talked about, there's just this constant worry. You're not sure what's happening. Or did your parents sit down and kind of talk to you about the trauma that they both experienced?
No, I didn't know the traumas they experienced until I was really an adult. Before my father passed away at 59 years old from cancer, he had started seeing a therapist, and my parents went together, and I think they went separately, and he got on medication. And when that happened, his life transformed. He was able to navigate situations and not be so upset or so angered by them. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned that my father didn't feel loved, and my father, didn't feel that his family appreciated him or loved him. Now, my grandmother had always told me that my father was her rock because he was the middle child. He was strong. He was healthy. But she told me she didn't go to his football games because she didn't want him to get hurt. And she was so afraid of him getting hurt, she couldn't watch. Now, my father thought that meant she didn't love him. So there were a lot of miscommunications, I think, because people didn't talk. My mother's perspective, her mother was very abusive, and I believe probably was bipolar based on looking back. But we didn't know these things. We only knew that there were periods of time when she was speaking to my parents or she wasn't speaking to my parents. And there was never any past or any history explained to us. So growing up, we just thought, well, okay, she's not speaking to us. She is speaking to us. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned all of the history and the things that had happened. I didn't know the significance of my mother's childhood and how awful my grandmother had been to her until just really in the recent history.
Wow.
So I didn't know those things. So
Right.
when all of this is going on, I'm not seeing this environment in my friends' homes, but I saw it in my own home. So it does elevate worry. It does elevate anxiety. And as a result of all the pressures, there was a ton of worry on my mother's part. And, I think probably she did have anxiety. We know my father did, but that constant worry. And to this day, worry is something that if I hear people worrying a lot, it's just, please stop. Like, you have control over those thoughts because
Yeah.
it's only going to give you a negative downward spiral in terms of how you manage the rest of your life.
Yeah. I want to talk more about that later in the show, the difference between worry and anxiety and being nervous. I think they're all a little bit different. And I know that,
They are.
you have a lot of knowledge. And by the way, for the viewers that might not know you and your work, you bring very much the topic of mindset into the work when you're working with entrepreneurs and helping them to establish their business and who they are. And it's really fascinating. I think the knowledge of the history of our family, would you say that could solve a lot of problems, I think, of dysfunction if there were more opportunities where parents sit down and say, here is the history of my side of the family, and here's the history of dad's side of the family. And just that awareness, I think, would alleviate a lot of angst that kids have.
100%. I think what happens though, and why that is so hard, is the fact that when anyone perceives their life as not being normal, and let's use air quotes for normal, because I don't think there is truly a definition for normal that fits the family. I think
Right.
we're all so unique, right? And there are different dynamics in every family. So to define a normal family, but a family with stability and no dysfunction may appear more normal than another family. But if you perceive your family as being different or not being the way it should be defined by society, then there's shame, and shame mounts. And anytime there's shame, there's fear and there's judgment. And oftentimes the past has not been forgiven, and that shame just compounds. And when that shame compounds, people don't want to talk about what happened in the past. They're afraid that what happened in the past is going to be placed as judgment on them. And so it's kept under the rug. And I think, in telling my story, it was absolutely not to blaspheme my parents. I love my parents dearly, and they did the absolute best they could in raising us despite the circumstances. My mother was a teen mother. She had me at 17. And, in a lot of ways, we grew up together. And we still, she'll say how old she is. And I'm like, Mom, like, you were a grandmother and I have a 14-year-old. Like, there's no aging on your part,
Yeah.
But it's funny how all of us can take something and perceive it one way, but if we choose to perceive it from that place of negativity or doubt or shame or judgment, instead of getting curious and giving ourselves the grace to accept things as they are and learn from that to change it for ourselves, then we do end up in that place of shame and hiding and more dysfunction building on top of those layers of dysfunction.
Yeah. So tell me how you managed while you were growing up, going to school, grade school, high school, college. How did you manage that anxiety? And were you working on kind of fixing it? Did you seek any therapy, or were you just kind of reflecting and exploring on your own, and then coming really to a realization about how to manage it?
So when I was young, no, there was no managing. And that is why I ended up with eating disorders and not doing well. And, I excelled in school. I was a perfectionist. I wanted to be the best I could possibly be, but I was a runner. I would exercise excessively. I was obsessed with body image, and I had an eating disorder. And that's how I managed. That's how I controlled, because the only thing I could control was what I did with my body.
Right.
I couldn't control anybody else. I couldn't control anyone else's reactions or behaviors, but I could control what I did with my body. And I think that's the case with a lot of young girls and young women. And when I was growing up, people didn't talk about mental health challenges.
Right.
And if they did, it was in whispers behind their back. And there was so much judgment and stigma around it that the opportunity wasn't there to get help. And my parents didn't know. They didn't know what they didn't know. And I use that phrase a lot, but the reality is I was very young I remember from 6 on having terrible stomach pains, but the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me. I would cry not wanting to go to school. The carpool would come to pick me up, and I'm sitting on the front porch crying, and my mom can't get me to the car to go to school. And so she would put me in my room for the day because she didn't know what to do with me. And we can laugh about that now, that she just literally did not know what to do with me because I wasn't physically sick, but yet I had symptoms and I couldn't go. I couldn't take that step to go do whatever it was I was supposed to go do.
And you couldn't verbalize it, right?
I could not verbalize it.
Yeah. I'm so surprised, actually, that your dad went for some therapy, because generationally, as you said, it really was not something that they would do or admit to even needing.
No. And I think there's a lot of irony in that. Actually, when we look at the entire situation around his death and his illness, he was not a man to go to the doctor. And had he gone to the general or the internist, the general practitioner, sooner, he would not have died from esophageal cancer. They would have caught it earlier. And, I was urging him to do this. I knew something was wrong for months before he actually finally went to the doctor, but his signs and symptoms had to get so bad for him to go to the doctor. And at that point, it was too late.
Yeah.
However, I think that he always wanted to be different. He hated being the way he was. When he was dying, I said, do you have any regrets? And he had zero regrets for the choices he made in his life. But what he regretted was his behaviors towards others. Meaning, and I use the example in the book, we would be going to church on Sunday morning and my mother was late for everything. And his reaction to that was anger. And my sisters and I would be like, why are we going to church? Everybody's yelling and fighting. And, I think this happens in a lot of families where there's a trigger, and that trigger, if not avoided, escalates. And that would happen. And so we'd be going to church and my father's angry, yelling at my mom, why are you always late? And my mom's like, well, I had to do XYZ. She didn't have to do XYZ. It became a habit, right? Mm-hmm. But she knew the reaction she was going to get, but yet she couldn't stop it. And I think that, he didn't like being so reactionary. He didn't like his temper getting out of control, but his anxiety would rise and poof, all of a sudden he couldn't handle that things weren't the way he wanted them to be. And that happens a lot in the anxious mind. It happens so fast. Our brain reacts so fast, but we don't have the skills to navigate and process what's happening and make a different decision. And so we become reactionary. And he didn't like that aspect of his life, but it wasn't until, we were all out of the house. And I think that my mom must have said, I'm fit to be tied. I can't do this anymore. And she knew all along that she was part of the problem. And that's, she would, how does she say it? I don't remember exactly. And this really isn't my story to tell, it's hers. But anyway, long story short, he ended up, I think, because he loved my mother so much, there was no way he was going to risk losing her. And so they had all this time left together. So they thought he was going to get help and become better so that they could live the rest of their lives together.
Right. You know what? And there is irony as well, because if the people around know what the triggers are, it's so much easier to accept and understand. And I bet your dad was so relieved when he learned more even about himself and understood, why do I get so angry? Why am I so, anxious?
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to go into our first break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the book and why you decided to write it. Stay with us for our watch team, and we'll be right back.
At Action News, we cherish every moment, and it's our profound responsibility to bring you closer to your world. Never miss a moment. Trust the people at Action News.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Sue Rocco, and you're watching Women to Watch, and I'm joined this week by Robyn Graham. Excuse me, I was going to say Glenn. Robyn Graham. Robyn is an author, and she is a personal brand strategist and consultant and advisor, I'll say, to women entrepreneurs. And I wanted to ask you at the beginning of this segment, why did you decide to write the book, You, Me, and Anxiety?
That is such a good question. And the only answer I can really give with all honesty is that I felt a calling on my heart to do it. I was experiencing motherhood with teens that had anxiety, and I was witnessing friends and family members and their children and observing the rise of anxiety and the increase in overdoses in our community, as well as the entire United States. I was watching young girls with eating disorders, and I thought, I have to tell my story. I have to come out. And, I feel like for many, many years, I lived under a facade. I was not exactly who I was. And because I didn't want people to know, I had a lot of shame around the eating disorders and how I actually grew up and all of those things. And despite the fact that we had so much laughter and love in our home, despite all of that dysfunction, we had a good childhood. My sisters and I have so many fun memories, and we had so much laughter and mayhem. But that heaviness, I just felt called to tell my story. And someone asked me one day, well, what ROI do you expect from writing this book? And I thought to myself, I hadn't even thought of ROI. Like a dollar amount never crossed my mind. But to save one girl from dying by suicide or death by overdose, if I did that would be ROI to last a lifetime.
Yeah. Do you think there's a genetic link? Because you mentioned your children, you're a mom, and you started to see it in your kids, and that must have been so scary, oh my gosh, my son or my daughter now is going to have the same challenge. Do you think there is a genetic link to it?
There 100% is a genetic link. That scientifically that has been proven. And I've experienced it. My grandmother, my father, me, my children, there is, and the same on my husband's family. I have so many friends who we didn't know, you can have a conversation and it's like, oh my gosh, that must have been what was wrong with my parent. That must have been what was wrong with my sister, or that defines my brother. There's so many people who did not know. And I think now we hear the phrase, oh, I have anxiety quite often. And it's almost overused, and it's often used as an excuse, and inappropriately, I'm going to say, because there are people who genetically are predisposed and then have environmental triggers on top of that. And anxiety is not something that is trivial. This is something that is a clinical diagnosis, and it is not something that one can manage on their own. Everyone can try, but it takes a team, it takes support, and it oftentimes takes a combination of medication and therapy in order for someone to truly be able to manage it long term.
Do you think it's possible for anyone to live without any level of anxiety? And actually, I wanted to talk to you about what you think the differences are between anxiety, worry, and just nervousness. I think they're not one and the same.
No, they are not one and the same. And I think it's often confused. When we talk about anxiety, it is an abnormal apprehension or fear around a certain circumstance, situation, or person that often is accompanied by physical signs and symptoms. And that fear is also is oftentimes prohibitive. People cannot do the things that they desperately want to do. When we talk about being nervous, you may have similar signs and symptoms as anxiety. However, the way I like to compare it is that if you are nervous about something, say you are going to give a talk and you're very nervous going into the situation, but as soon as you have done the presentation and you are finished, all that weight is off your shoulders. You feel relaxed. Your palms are no longer sweating. You're not shaky. Any symptom that you had is removed. With anxiety, that doesn't cease. You can be anxious and nervous about doing a talk, but after you have finished, then all the what ifs come in. What if they didn't like me? What if that person I saw writing something down was writing something bad about me in an evaluation? And those negative thoughts just keep coming in and flooding you quickly. And it's just, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? So you can see the difference there. Worry is a dwelling on the negative. And I believe full-heartedly that worry is a choice, that we can sit and worry all day long that something bad is going to happen. And all we're doing is focusing on the negative unnecessarily, because if we're worrying about things that we have no control over,
or the future, right? I think women,
the future.
We're worrying about the future, something that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. And what we focus on ultimately is what we create. So if we're sitting there and focusing on all of this negative worry, then we're stripping ourselves of the joy and the possibilities for a positive future. So that's the difference of the three.
Okay. So let's move a little bit to your professional journey. I think it's so interesting that you were a pharmacist and then a photographer, and now you're running your own business as a personal brand strategist. So how did that come about? What were your aspirations when you first went to pharmacy school?
Oh, I wanted a high-powered career. I wanted to wear a suit every day and heels, and I wanted to make a lot of money. And I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom like my mom. And I just
get out of Illinois.
I did. I wanted to get out of Southern Illinois. I wanted to be in the city. I wanted high energy, high power. And I achieved that. I got a doctorate degree, and it wasn't without angst. There was, and the story is in the book, of course, about my journey there. There was some turmoil and a lot of things that did not go as they should have gone, but I did it. I was successful and I had a good career and I won awards and all of those things. And then I met my husband. We got married. We moved to Pennsylvania for his job when my oldest was 9 months old. So complete whirlwind. As much as I wanted to get away from the little town I grew up in, it was never my plan to get completely away from my family. However, probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I grew so much as a person. But fast forward, when my oldest was in 6th grade, we started seeing significant signs and symptoms of anxiety. I knew what was happening because I didn't know it was anxiety per se, because up to this point, I still had not technically ever been officially treated for anxiety. So keep in mind that I'm just knowing that he's acting the way I always felt.
Was he saying anything to you?
No.
Okay. So you just recognized intuitively, you knew.
I knew. And we saw the doctor. We did go to a therapist, and it helped. It was great. And he started to do better. But at that point, when we started to see that, I was consulting. So I was having to travel some. My husband traveled 50% globally. He has the same degree I have and works in big pharma. And our life was crazy. No family here. We were like 2 ships passing in the night at times. And our nanny that I had watching our daughter became very ill. And Grace was, I think, 3 at the time. So there was a lot of anxiety, I'll say anxiety, building in our home. And my husband and I looked at each other and we just said, this is not worth it. This is not how we want to raise our children. And I said, I do not ever want our children to live the way I've lived. Not that I had a bad life, but there was so much darkness inside that I lived with.
Right.
And I could never fully let my guard down. So I never truly enjoyed everything to the extent I could have and wish I had. And I didn't want that for my children. And my husband said, you love photography. You light up when you do it. Why don't you do something with your photography? Now, to this point, I had taken pictures of my kids, friends' kids, but mostly I did fine art photography. But I thought, okay, I'll do this. And I started a blog.
Little lighter. Yeah.
It's a little lighter. I could control my schedule, you know, still be at all the games, be here when they got off the bus for school, all of that. And within 6 weeks, I had my first client, which was a personal branding photography client. And at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. But at that point in time, I was still new to this world of entrepreneurship, new to this world in the creativity aspect. I didn't know how to brand myself. I didn't know what to do. I tried to do everything myself instead of hiring someone. So I made a lot of mistakes and I learned a lot on that journey. And a few years in, I decided, you know what, I am narrowing down to only headshots and branding because I can do that during the day when my kids are at school. And that's what I did. And I loved it, met incredible people, made women feel extraordinarily comfortable in front of the camera, which is very difficult to do. It was very rewarding. I still got to have intellectual conversations with people. But as I was working, I realized that the entrepreneurs that were coming to me did not know how to build a personal brand. They didn't even know what that meant. They didn't know what images to use for what. And so I started consulting with them to say, okay, I'm going to review all these images with you. And here are all the ideas of how you can use them. But they didn't know how to use them for SEO on their website. There were so many things they didn't know how to do. And the more I started seeing this, the more I thought, I can help them so much more than just taking pictures of them.
How did you learn that? Did it just come naturally to you? You know, what they should be doing?
I'm a very strategic thinker. And when I was in corporate, I did a lot of work in marketing. So a lot of that just came naturally to me. But I also am an avid reader and I read everything I can get my hands on and I study and I observe other people and what other people are doing. So it came easy to me, I have to say. And I'm very fortunate that I learn quickly and I adapt quickly. And I'm a strategic thinker in addition to being very creative. So the two, I was fortunate that they went hand in hand in this situation. But the more I started doing that, the more I fell in love with the coaching, the teaching component of what I was doing. And then in 2021, as I was writing the book, preparing to publish it, I had the podcast, I had the book, I had my business and the coaching business, and then also the photography business. And something had to go for 2022. I couldn't do it all. I realized I'm one person, I'm human, I can't do it all. And so despite the fact that I have a little team around me, I said, you know what? This is what I want to do because I can have a bigger impact. I can have a deeper impact if I'm helping people with their mindset, if I'm helping them navigate the struggles of the online world. And because I'm tech savvy and I have all of these additional skills, there's so many ways I could help them instead of just giving them images that a lot of times they had no idea what to even do with.
Right. Would you say you are a teacher? So I often think that we all fall into a category, right? A different title, if you will. And when you look back, do you think teaching has always been something that brings you joy and you're where you're meant to be?
100%, Susan, 100%. And it's funny because when I'm working with my clients, a lot of times they don't have clarity around what their purpose is or who their ideal soulmate clients are. And I always start with what I call my purpose equation, which is listing out your values, your visions, and your passions. And where they overlap, if you think of a Venn diagram, that is where your purpose lies. And so for me, when I look at my values and my visions, which started from the time I was a little girl, we would play house. My father had these antique desks he picked up somewhere. I don't know, maybe the school was getting rid of them. I don't know, but we had them set up like a classroom in our basement. And I was the teacher for all the neighbor girls, my sisters. I was always the teacher. And I look back on that, and that is truly what I love to do is to educate. And I think it's hard for me to put a title on what I do. Yes, it's consulting. Yes, it's coaching. Yes, it's teaching. It's mentoring. It's all of that rolled into one. So if anyone has a word for all of that rolled into one, I would love to know what it is. But it all stems from that love of teaching and educating and having that method of support in there at the same time.
It's interesting that you said that, because one of my questions, I think in the world today, there are mentors, guides, advisors, teachers, consultants. And I think when people are starting a business or a company, they're not even sure. They know they need help, but they're not exactly sure whose help they need. And I wonder if you could just give clarification for those people, if there's a woman watching, to determine which one of those they need and what the difference is. I think there's a difference between a mentor, right, and a consultant and an advisor.
Absolutely. I think it's you really have to look at what it is that you need the most help with. And a lot of times for entrepreneurs, they don't even realize there's a mindset block holding them back. So to have a business coach or a business consultant that has mindset expertise as well is an added bonus, because inevitably, if you aren't growing, you're not progressing, you're not moving the needle forward on your business, something's holding you back somewhere. And usually it's up here. And so to be able to discover both, if you are not tech savvy, you don't completely understand marketing, you're not sure of the digital world, a business consultant can help you with that. If you have everything set up, but it doesn't feel like it's working for you, a consultant can come in on the back end and dive in to say, oh, well, here's part of the problem. Your message in your copy isn't clear. Your SEO isn't set up properly. There are so many nuances to entrepreneurship that people don't recognize as a problem unless somebody tells them that it's a problem. And we are so inundated with so much information every single day online that it can become overwhelming to the point where we don't even know what our actual problem is.
Right.
Because we just know that I'm doing all of these things everybody's saying, but it's not working. So to have someone that you can actually go to and meet with to say, okay, I need you to look at my entire business and me as the business owner and tell me, where can I improve? What's working, what's not working? Because so oftentimes we don't know what we don't know in our own businesses. And so you need that eagle's eye view of what's going on in the business, somebody else's perspective, just to be able to dive a little bit deeper.
So what question, when you're working or meeting with a new client, what questions do you ask them to get to the root of the mindset? Because you have to start there, right? To make sure that there's nothing holding them back, mentally, I'll say. What questions do you ask to find that out?
So we start with, I take a deep dive and I look at everything that I see about them on social media, on their website, everything, to see, number one, if there is clarity there. If there's no clarity for me, chances are there's no clarity for them. Usually if there isn't clarity, then there's something holding them back from expressing what they're truly an expert at. There's some fear holding them back. If they're not consistent or they're not cohesive, there's a lack of understanding and there's a lack of clarity. And there's also something holding them back from being present, from really communicating and sharing what it is about them. So if I start to see some of that, then I'm going to understand immediately that, okay, they're afraid to do XYZ. Sometimes it's as simple as seeing that they don't have a profile picture on their social media account. They have their logo. They're hiding behind their business.
Right. That's so interesting. A lot of times I'll go to a website to learn, and the first thing I'm always looking for is an about tab. And some businesses don't even have that. No. There's no about. Who are you? What is this business? You know what, Robyn, we came to the end of the segment. It went so fast. I have a lot more questions I wanted to ask you, but we have to go into a break. I thank you so much for being here, and share your website so that people can find you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm therobyngraham.com, and I'm the Robyn Graham everywhere on the web. So I'm very easy to find. You can learn about the book on the website as well.
Terrific. I think it's going to help a lot of people. I think you're very brave to tell that story.
Thank you, Susan.
We're going to go into our next break. And when we come back, we're going to be with Sherry Marson, our Lifestyle Watch segment contributor. And she's going to be with a mother-daughter team who own a winery, Gail and Glenn. We'll be right back.
At Action News, we cherish every moment, and it's our profound responsibility to bring you closer to your world. Never miss a moment. Trust the people at Action News.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on three. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Hi, welcome back to the show. You're watching Women to Watch. I'm Sue Rocco, and we are joined by Sherry Marson, our brand new Lifestyle Watch contributor. And she's going to be speaking with Sarah Troxel, who is the owner of a winery. And she's actually a mother-daughter team. So I'm excited to learn more about it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, we're speaking with owner and winemaker Sarah Troxel of Gail and Glenn Vineyard and Winery. Thanks for joining us today, Sarah.
My privilege and pleasure.
So Gail and Glenn is an 83-acre farm. It's 20 acres of vineyard and a winery, and it's located in Andrews, Pennsylvania, which is approximately an hour and a half from Philadelphia and about an hour and 10 minutes from Montgomery County. And it is absolutely magnificent. I feel like I'm on top of the world as I look 360 degrees at the vineyards. They're just like undulating all around you. Sarah, can you tell us a little history of Gail and Glenn?
So the farm is in my husband's family for nearly 200 years. My husband is generation 6, and our daughter Erin, who has come back to join us after a couple college degrees and a master's in Europe, is generation 7. It's a privilege to live there and share it with guests when they visit us, because as you described, it has an astounding 360-degree view. And we farm wine. We've got 20 acres of grapes and 10 varieties that we grow.
Wow. So I have one of your bottles. You were nice enough to share some wine for me to try so I could make sure I knew what I was talking about. Let's see if I can turn this right. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
So your labels, they're unique, they're eye-catching, they tell a story.
Tell
me about the elements on the label. Describe them, please.
So the large hexagon on the label shows our property. The winery is named after my husband, Galen, and then the second part of the name, Glen, refers to the shape of the land. Our farm is a glacially carved glen, carved out about 10,000 years ago. The same glaciers creep down from the Finger Lakes and carve our farm. So the top of the glen, we have vineyards. In the valley of the glen, we have the wine cellar. And then on the other side of the glen, more vineyards. There's a little gear on the label. That's a nod to my husband's background as an engineer. And lastly, there's a small icon that we change out. It's grape leaves. It's a fleur-de-lis. It's a crown. It's all kinds of icons that kind of symbolize the wine in the bottle. And lastly, the whole shape is held together because before I was a winemaker, I was a pharmaceutical chemist. So the first question I get asked is it a real molecule? No, it is a molecule, but it is a hexagon ring, which is a symbol in many forms of chemistry, but also in life. Honeycombs are hexagons. So it's kind of a nod to nature and science together.
That's very cool. And that's what makes a great label is it tells a story, it's eye-catching, and that definitely the different shapes on there are eye-catching. You use some great colors. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
So one of my favorite parts of your story is it does include your daughter, Erin, who is now a partner and big piece of Galen Glen. How did Erin get involved?
So Erin grew up on our farm. We moved when she was 8 years old and just grew up taking care of the grapes right alongside myself and my husband. And when it came time for her to go to university, she said, I think I really want to do this. And we said, no, you don't.
We know it, you don't.
No, because she had seen it's a lot of work. Any farm is, not just growing wine. But she was pretty sure she did. So she ended up heading off to Cornell, where she got 2 degrees, one in plant science and viticulture, and then one in enology and viticulture, and the second one in plant science. Then from there, she hopped over to Europe, where she ended up getting a master's, also in enology and viticulture, and started a tour of the world. So she's worked many places, most famously Napa Valley, all over Europe, and also a bit in New Zealand and Long Island. So she brings all of that experience back to us. Her focus is sustainable. And as a woman wine grower, she is in the minority. As a woman winemaker, there are a fair number of women winemakers, but women that grow wine and work in a vineyard, almost none. It's a very exclusive group that she belongs to, and it is definitely her passion. It would have been a huge mistake on the part of my husband and I to prevent her from going, because she's a vine whisperer. She's outside every day. Rain, snow, sleet, hail, sun, heat, it doesn't matter. She's in the vineyard with her vines.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, you're quite the mentor and quite accomplished yourself. You were named the #1 woman winemaker in the USA.
Yeah.
And Galen Glen, and that was usually something that goes to somebody out in the West Coast. So, and I know that when they named you that was during a competition that was on the West Coast. So here you are from Pennsylvania, not so popular for wine. And that says a lot, Sarah.
Yeah.
And also Galen Glen was named best winery in Pennsylvania. That's very cool as well.
Yeah. We have a pretty nice list of accolades. Wine is all we do. It's a very serious thing for us. If you visit us early in the morning, it's wine, and it's wine until the sun goes down. And everything we do is we talk about wine growing, wine making, wine blending, what we can do to improve or create something new. It's very much a passion. Erin also has 2 brothers who grew up in the business as well. And even they, enjoy wine. It's just, you can't be a family that grows wine and not have it affect all parts of your life.
Yeah, sure. I understand that. So you have 20 acres of vineyards. You grow 5 varietals and 5 hybrids. What's the most popular of your varietals?
So the biggest production was the bottle you actually held up. It's Gruner Veltliner, and we happen to have the second oldest planting in America. We planted ours in 2003. The oldest is 2002. And the reason we planted it, I read about it in Food and Wine, which sounds kind of, everyone picks up a magazine and reads it. I read about it, asked my husband to plant it. At that point, I couldn't even say it. Now it rolls off my tongue. But there were no vines in America. It was a very complicated process, but it turned out it was a really good choice. It grows beautifully on our variety. On our farm. We've gotten a lot of attention for it. It's really been a defining variety for our property. If you haven't had Gruner, it's kind of like there's a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc characteristics to it, but also some Chardonnay. It's a delightfully dry wine, and we really enjoy growing it. We now have multiple vineyards of it and multiple clones, so many ways to enjoy Gruner.
Yeah, I generally like red wines a little bit more, but I have to say that I really, really enjoyed the Gruner, and I also loved your Riesling. So it was tough to decide which I like better. I'm just going to have to get more and see what I can work out as far as my favorites 1 through 5.
Well, you should try as well.
So in addition to the vineyard, you've got a beautiful tasting room. You have an additional 2 areas for tastings, events, and private parties.
Yep, we do.
You're currently putting on a patio with an amazing view. I encourage anybody who is interested in learning more to go up and check out Galen Glen. You're open to the public Friday and Saturday 12 to 6 and Sunday 12 to 5.
Correct.
And then you also schedule private and corporate events during your other hours if anybody's interested in having anything. There are some really great spaces surrounded by glass or outside. It's really a unique setting. I mean, Pennsylvania, you don't expect to find something like this, but there it was. You sell your wines online,
yes,
at your store, right, at the winery,
yep,
and also they're available at Wegmans and quite a few fine restaurants in Philadelphia and around. So you just did a big tasting last night at River Twice Restaurant. That's one of the top restaurants in Philadelphia.
He is unbelievably talented. I would encourage anyone. I can't wait to go back again. It was an exceptional experience. So yeah, that was a privilege to be paired with that exquisite food. Yeah, cool. A lovely night.
Well, if anybody's interested in more information, please go to the website. It's listed at the bottom of your screen, galenglen.com. And thank you, Sarah, for joining us today. I appreciate all of your efforts in making this happen. And I look forward to seeing all of you next week. I'll be joined by Victoria Wright of Made to Measure in Philadelphia and the Made Institute. So keep living your dream, ladies. Back to you, Sue.
Thanks, Sherry. Sarah, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much. We're going to go into our last break, and we'll be right back.
At Action News, we cherish every moment, and it's our profound responsibility to bring you closer to your world. Never miss a moment. Trust the people at Action News.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mama. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Welcome back. That's it, everyone, for another week of Women to Watch. A big thank you, as always, to our watch team of corporate partners for helping us to bring you the show every week and all the amazing stories of women doing wonderful things. Stay with us next week for my guest, Katie Fitzgerald. Katie is the president of Feeding America. Have a great week, everyone.
At Action News, we cherish every moment, and it's our profound responsibility to bring you closer to your world. Never miss a moment. Trust the people at Action News.
Did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mama. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.